If you were going to give someone the 5-minute summary of how to master a topic, what would be the most important factors to look at?
Well, the most important factor is chapter 1 in the book, and you're never going to master something unless you understand this. The brain is designed to learn. We learn much better when we're emotionally engaged, when we want to learn, when we're motivated, when we feel the need to learn. I compare it to, let's say you want to learn, you have to learn French, and if it's like in the university and it's something you have to study, in 1 year you're not going to learn very much. But if you're in France and your girlfriend is French and you need to get a job and you need to speak French, because you're there and you're motivated, you're going to learn like 20 times faster. That's just how the brain works. So
what's happening there, though, is at first you find the girl rather than first you say to yourself, I want to get good at French.
Yeah, that could be. But the point that I'm making is that when you're motivated to learn something, you have to learn it. You're going to learn much faster. So you're in France and you met this great girl, but she speaks no English, and you've got to be able to learn French in order to communicate and seduce her. You're so highly motivated that you're going to learn, I said 10 times, 20, 50 times faster than the university student back in New York or wherever you're studying. So the thing is, a lot of people go wrong. They choose a career because it's about money. I have nothing against money. We all have to make a living. But let's say you go into law because that's what your parents are pushing you into and other people, and it seems lucrative, but you yourself aren't personally excited by it. You're going to start tuning out. You're not going to learn very fast. After 10 years, you're going to burn out. You're never going to become a master because it takes 10,000 hours. You've probably all heard about that 10,000 hours. It's a brilliant study. It's just a number, but let's say it is pretty real. It could be 9,000, 11,000. You're never going to have the patience. You're never going to be able to put in the 10 years or more studying something unless you really are excited about it, unless there's some kind of personal commitment to it. So it's by far the most important thing. It's that choice of the career. It doesn't mean you have to know exactly what you want to be when you're 21 years old and then go pursue it. It's going to be a process that might take you 5, 10 years to figure out exactly what that is. For me, as a writer, it took me 15 years to find out I should be writing books like the kind that I write. It's going to take time. But if you don't make that first step, if you go into the wrong field, you're never going to become a master. You're never going to last long enough. So that's that's the first thing.
And I think a big question that many people have is, how do I find the thing that I'm passionate about? Now, you mentioned 5 to 6 years or 15 years in your case in terms of wanting to be a writer. But what is that process by which someone finds what they're motivated enough to be a master about?
Well, everybody has a different process, a different journey. Some people know pretty clearly what it was when they were young. I met a woman who interviewed me. She knew that she wanted to be a writer when she was a young girl, and then she got into law, and it was a dead end, and she hated it, and she finally figured it out that she had to go back at the age of 31 to what she really loved. So there are going to be people like that. But there are others, and they come to me and they say, I have no idea what my passion is. I have no idea what I really love. And that's troubling, because that means you're not listening to yourself. You're not aware of your own likes and dislikes. You've been paying too much attention to what other people are saying. So you have to go through a process now of kind of looking at yourself. I've worked as a consultant. I've dealt with people, many people, who say that to me. They say, I'm 35, I'm 40. I don't know what it is that I was meant to do. I really have no idea. Okay, let's go back and let's look at your childhood. Let's look at the things that excited you. Let's look at maybe where you went wrong. Let's look at the things that you hate. If you hate working for a large company, if you hate politicking, you're probably meant to be an entrepreneur, to be working for yourself on some level. Let's look at the things that when you open the newspaper or go online, these subjects really excite you, make you kind of like a child again, where you want to learn about it. And slowly through, could take a couple months, could take a year, I don't know, depends on the person, you're reconnecting to what I call a voice inside of you that you had when you were a kid that drew you to certain activities and you've lost touch with. I could go on for 4 hours about the process that I've dealt with consulting, but it's basically not going to be overnight. You're not going to wake up and go, I should have been a doctor, and I went into no, it doesn't like that. It takes time, but it is so worth it.
So with so after that first realization that, okay, I'm motivated to be a writer, or I'm motivated to discover more uses of electricity, or to be an internet entrepreneur, or whatever it is, what would you say is the next step?
Well, first of all, if you're 22 and you're about to enter your career world, it's not going to be like it won't be like I know this is exactly where I have to head. It's usually a matter of I like this field, the sciences, or I like sports or whatever. A general category of things that you're going to pursue. For me, it was writing. And so when I was 21, I decided I'd go into journalism as a way to make a living and train myself as a writer. So you're going to make a choice of something to start with that is somewhat related to that field that you love. And it can be kind of general. It could just be the tech world, or it could be a certain kind of business. It doesn't have to be that specific. But you've got to make the right choice. And once you get in there, I'm telling you that you want to think of your 20s as your apprenticeship. Now, we don't use that word anymore, and it's a shame that we don't. We all go through usually the school system, the education system, where we're all kind of guided, and there are teachers there to help us. Now there's nobody there to do anything for you. Maybe your parents, but really nobody's there to guide you in this new part of your life. So you're creating your own apprenticeship, and that apprenticeship means you're going to learn skills. It's not about making money. If you are 22 and you're obsessed with making money, you're never going to really make a lot of money. It's kind of a perverse law of human nature that I'm going to discuss. The people who end up making the most amount of money are usually motivated by something else. And the classic example is Steve Jobs, somebody who from very early on was clearly not very interested in money, and look where he ended up. So you're choosing something that appeals to you, and then now you're open. You're on I call it a journey, and you're going to discover, I like what I'm doing here, but there's something better for me. It's not exactly right. I knew that journalism after 3 years wasn't really right for me. So I went into a different kind of writing. Well, you'll figure, all right, I'll go into a different line of work, a different business, still related. And as you do this, you're going to be accumulating skills, experiences. You're going to be observing people. You're going to get political, social skills. And by the time you're 31, you're going to own the world. You're going to have a lot of experience, and then you'll be able to figure out how to combine everything that you've learned into something great, something that really appeals to you. And I give examples in the book. There's a guy, I interviewed contemporary masters. One of us, Paul Graham, who started a company called Y Combinator, which is like a entrepreneur system for tech people in Silicon Valley. It's worth billions of dollars. And he is the same thing. He didn't realize until he was 31, I think 30, what it was that he was meant to do. But in his 20s, he did all of these amazing experiences that served as a foundation for what ended up being this great tech business that he created for Netscape back in the 90s. So be prepared not to necessarily strike gold when you're 25 or 26. It's going to take some time. But if you think of it as your own education that you yourself are in charge of, you're going to be a lot better off than people who just wander around and just choose any career.
Robert, I think this is a really important message now, even from an economics point of view, just because what we're seeing is kind of the disintegration of the middle class. And the middle class was formed by the conformity of the traditional school system, the conformity of traditional corporatism, where everybody feels that they're safe in their cubicle and they could rise up and get promotions and so on. People now have to essentially, whether it's become masters or become close to masters, they have to take charge of their economic lives, which means they have to do something they're motivated by and they're interested in. Even if they don't put in their 10,000 hours, they kind of have to take control of their own lives. And that's why I think this message has become critically important in today's society.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I can look at my father. He worked at the same company for 40 years, and they were loyal to him, and he was loyal to them. And it's not that long ago that world existed, that people would work at one place and things were sort of taken care of. But that's just been blown away, obliterated, probably by the internet, by other things going on. It's you might as well be the era of the dinosaur.
Right.
And you cannot rely on, you know, that company you're working for now, they'll probably downsize you the first opportunity they can, or as soon as you reach a certain age, they'll replace you with somebody who's cheaper. That's just the nature of it. I'm not saying it's good. I wish it weren't that way, but my books are about realists, or being realistic, and that's just the nature of it. So yeah, you got to take control of your own life and craft an apprenticeship. Now, that you mentioned the 10,000 hour, it doesn't mean, I want to clear up a misconception here. It doesn't mean that you are you're playing chess for 10,000 hours and then you become a master or medicine or whatever. Those 10,000 hours could come from different things you have done in your life. So, for instance, this woman that I mentioned, who spent her 20s in law and realized it was the wrong thing, she decided when it was finished that what she would do was become a writer, but become a writer about legal issues, which was a very brilliant move on her part. So now all of that legal experience added up to 3,000-4,000 hours already of writing, of experience about legal matters. And then when she started getting into journalism, now the hours are piling up. You can take that time that you think you wasted doing something else, and you're going to apply it to something that really appeals to you, and suddenly all of that experience enters into the practice. I did a lot of really bad jobs myself because as a writer I wanted a lot of experience. I did construction work, etc. And all of those jobs taught me about people and about weird power situations and about the games bosses play in all different kinds of careers, all of which I used for the 48 Laws of Power. So you can be 35 and you're not going to go, oh, damn it, I can't do 10,000 hours, my life's screwed. No, you've already probably done 5,000 hours. Now you've got to find a way to apply it in a way that's appropriate and personal.
So that's a great way to look at it. It's almost like your past. Don't view it as, you've messed up or whatever, but basically, how have you built these prior hours as a safety net that you could then use to build either mastery or close to mastery so that you can make that leap from the corporate job or the job that you're not really that excited about to something that you are more excited about. Not everyone's a Mozart, but everyone can use the hours that they've built up to build some sort of safety net for themselves if they apply your techniques. What is the relationship between mastery and happiness? Because many of the examples you use, and in fact you used the example earlier of Steve Jobs, but also let's throw in, Mozart and Napoleon and so on, and Tesla, these people did not end up as happy people for, by and large. So,
well, I would really much take issue with that. I mean, Steve Jobs, he was a tempestuous person who was sort of had a very obsessive personality. But I would say, judging on the biography, the last 12 years of his life must have been immensely satisfying. And there are people, it depends on your definition of happiness. So the book is called Mastery. It's not called Happiness. If I wanted to write a book on happiness, I would say, go take drugs and hang out in Peru on a hilltop or something. That's not what my book is about. But I'll say that I am making the point that everybody has creative potential. Everybody, I believe. And I think the worst feeling in life comes from the sense as you get older that you didn't somehow tap that potential. You're not expressing what you think you could have expressed. And I think it really makes a lot of people very, very unhappy. Mozart had a pretty great life when he finally left his father. He died young, but I would certainly claim he was pretty happy. I don't think a lot of these people who we see as very driven are necessarily unhappy. They do spend a lot of time with their work, and they are maybe obsessive. But that kind of attention to detail, to doing what you love, brings a sense of satisfaction that comes that maybe isn't the same satisfaction that you might get from an immediate rush of going to a party. It's a different kind of happiness. It's something a little more like a fulfillment. And I believe, actually, that mastery is the path towards that. And I have a quote in there from Da Vinci, which I love, which is basically just as a day when you've worked hard brings a blessed sleep, a life in which you've fulfilled what you're doing brings a blessed death. I'm quoting it horribly, but the idea is if you felt like you realized your potential, you almost feel like you can die a happy person.